Today we're diving straight into the opening keynote of Microsoft Build 2025.
Yeah, we've got excerpts from the official YouTube transcript, and our goal really is to pull out the key announcements, the important insights for anyone in software development, AI, that sort of thing.
Right, focusing on what these developments actually mean for you if you're trying to stay current and figure out how to use this new tech.
Exactly. We want to see what's relevant, what's actionable.
Absolutely. My first reaction watching it was just, wow, the sheer volume of stuff they announced was huge.
Yeah.
But, two themes really stood out for me, this idea of AI empowering people and just the sheer opportunity opening up for developers.
Definitely. So let's maybe start where Satya Nadella did. He kicked things off with a pretty personal story, didn't he, about his early programming days.
Yeah, that feeling of wonder, he called it. And he connected that directly to his excitement about AI now. He even used the phrase superpower for everyone.
Right, which I think was a nice way to frame it. It sets a really optimistic tone, linking the past to this AI future.
And that led straight into one of the biggest concepts, I think,
Yeah.
the agentic web. They're really positioning this as a major platform shift.
Oh, absolutely. Not just an update, but like the next big evolution. They put it on par with Win32 way back when, or the web stack, or even cloud and mobile more recently.
So what is the core idea behind the agentic web? How's it different?
Well, the way they described it, it's a move away from these, siloed, vertically integrated apps
Okay.
towards a more open, scalable platform that's built around these intelligent agents working together. Think less about individual apps, more about a network of assistants.
Got it. So developers across the board, not just at big companies, can build these smarter apps and agents that can actually talk to each other and collaborate. That feels like a fundamental change.
It really does. And it's happening against a backdrop of just massive growth in the developer community already. The numbers were pretty staggering.
Yeah, what were they again? Visual Studio users?
Over 50 million for Visual Studio, 150 million developers on GitHub,
150 million.
and GitHub Copilot usage crossing 15 million developers. So the audience for these tools is just enormous.
Which makes sense why they spent a good chunk of time on updates to the core developer tools then. What stood out for Visual Studio and VS Code?
Well, for Visual Studio, there's a clear push on improving things for .NET and C++ developers. Things like live preview right at design time, better Git tooling, which is always welcome.
Always.
Cross-platform debugging improvements, and interestingly, they're shifting to a monthly stable release cadence.
Monthly, okay. Faster updates. And VS Code.
VS Code hit its 100th release, which is quite a milestone. Key updates there included better multi-window support and an improved staged view for Git changes, making it easier to see what you're about to commit.
Good iterative improvements. And GitHub continues to be central, obviously.
Absolutely. Positioned as the home for all developers, and they mentioned strong momentum with enterprise adoption too. But the really big news, I think, was open sourcing GitHub Copilot within VS Code.
Right, that felt significant. Embedding the AI right into the core tool itself.
Exactly. It's not just an add-on anymore. It suggests they see AI as fundamental to the coding experience now, and open sourcing it could really accelerate how those capabilities evolve, potentially with community help.
So Copilot itself is changing fast then. It started as code completion, right?
Yeah, it's gone from basic code completion to chat interfaces, then handling edits across multiple files, and now agents. This whole evolution really mirrors that larger agentic web idea. We're moving from just asking AI questions to actually giving it tasks.
Okay, let's dig into that agent concept more. It came up again and again. What exactly are these agents supposed to do?
So the basic pattern seems to be, you ask questions, sure, but you can also assign work. You collaborate side by side. GitHub Copilot, for example, is now framed as a pure programmer.
A pure programmer, meaning it can actually do the coding work.
Pretty much. They're saying it can autonomously handle tasks, fixing bugs, writing new features, code maintenance, that sort of thing. And this isn't just a future concept. They said it's available now.
And we saw a demo, right? Assigning a GitHub issue directly to Copilot.
Exactly. The demo showed assigning an issue. I think it was adding a filter for user groups straight to Copilot. And then Copilot went ahead and created the pull request to solve it.
Okay, that's a pretty big leap from just suggesting code snippets.
It is. And it wasn't limited to just coding tasks either. They showed an autonomous agent for SRE site reliability engineering.
Ah, that sounds potentially game-changing for operations teams. What could it do?
Well, the idea is it can automatically triage production issues, perform root cause analysis, and even apply mitigations. They used a memory leak example.
So it finds the problem and tries to fix it.
Right. And then, importantly, it logs an incident report as a GitHub issue, potentially suggesting a permanent fix, which, you guessed it, can then be assigned back to Copilot to implement. Think about the potential reduction in late-night pager duty alerts.
Yeah, no kidding. And Microsoft seems keen on making this an open ecosystem, not just their own agents.
That was the message. Fostering an open, secure ecosystem, allowing partners to build agents too, and ensuring developers and IT have controls over how these agents operate.
This whole agent concept clearly has momentum. Sam Altman from OpenAI even joined the keynote to talk about it.
He did, virtually. He and Satya discussed this evolution in software engineering. Altman called the agentic coding experience wild, agreeing it's a major change for programming.
What was his take on where it's heading?
He talked about having a real virtual teammate, someone or something you can delegate tasks to, whether it's fixing bugs, implementing features, or even just asking questions about the code base.
And he seemed pretty bullish on the pace of improvement in the underlying AI models, too.
Very much so. He emphasized how quickly models are getting better and, crucially, simpler to use, focusing on reliability, trust, and multimodality, basically making it just work.
Did he offer any advice for developers looking to build these kinds of agentic apps?
His main point was acknowledging the incredible rate of change in model power. He basically said, plan for things to get much better, much faster, and urge developers to lean into these new tools and workflows now rather than wait.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, shifting gears slightly, but still on the AI integration theme, Microsoft 365 Copilot.
Yeah.
That also got a major update.
A huge update. They positioned the latest M365 Copilot, now generally available, as the biggest thing since Teams launched. It's really becoming the central hub for AI interaction within the Microsoft ecosystem.
So it brings together a lot of different capabilities.
Yeah, it acts as the UI for AI, integrating chat grounded on both web data and your specific work context, with search that spans across M365 and even third-party apps like Confluence, Jira, ServiceNow.
Okay, so search beyond just Microsoft stuff.
Right. Plus, there are notebooks for organizing information, creation tools like turning PowerPoint into video or generating images, and of course, agents.
What kind of agents did they mention for M365?
They highlighted a couple of specialized ones. Researcher, which can synthesize information from both public web sources and internal enterprise data, and Analyst, designed to find insights and create visualizations from raw data sets. The goal is putting expertise at your fingertips.
And Teams plays a big role in making this collaborative.
Definitely. Teams essentially makes M365 Copilot multiplayer. Agents built by developers can surface and operate within both the main Copilot interface and within Teams chats or channels. We saw examples from partners like Workday with an agent summarizing tasks and service agents pulling real-time incident metrics.
So if developers want to build these agents for M365 or Teams, how do they do it? That's where Copilot Studio comes in.
Exactly. Copilot Studio is the tool for building these experiences. They announced updates to make it easier to create more complex multi-agent workflows using orchestration.
Orchestration meaning getting multiple agents to work together.
Precisely. The example was onboarding a new hire. You might have an agent coordinating tasks between facilities, finance, legal, HR, all orchestrated through Copilot Studio. And they mentioned over 1 million agents have already been built for Copilot and Teams in the last year.
1 million. Wow. And they also introduced something called Copilot Tuning. What's that about?
Copilot tuning is about customization. It's presented as a low-code way for an organization to tailor Copilot to its specific context, its unique language, acronyms, business processes, internal knowledge.
So making it speak your company's language.
Kind of, yeah. You seed a training environment with your own data, it inherits existing permissions, and then you can deploy that tuned Copilot to specific user groups. The example was a law firm training it to reason based on their past case arguments.
And we saw demos tying this together, right?
Yes.
Using the M365 app and Copilot Studio.
We did. One showed using the new M365 Copilot app with that researcher agent to analyze a GitHub backlog. Another built an RFP response agent in Copilot Studio, pulling data from Dynamics, DocuSign, even SAP, using low-code tools and multi-agent orchestration for things like compliance checks.
And then tuning it.
Yeah. They followed up showing how Copilot tuning could refine an agent for a specific task like contract writing, and then deploying that specialized agent right into the M365 Copilot app.
Okay, so underpinning all these agent capabilities, M365 Copilot, GitHub Copilot, is Azure AI Foundry. That sounds like the engine room.
That's a good way to put it. They called Foundry a production line for intelligence. It's not just about the AI model itself, but the whole system around it. Evaluation frameworks, orchestration tools, RV.
RE being retrieval augmented generation.
Right, where the AI pulls in external, real-time information to improve its answers. They said over 70,000 organizations are already using Foundry.
And it supports a lot of different models, not just OpenAI's.
A huge range. Over 1,900 models supported. They highlighted the latest from OpenAI, mentioning 15 models shipped just this year, same-day access to new releases, and said Sarah, the video generation model, was coming next week.
Wow, Sora on Azure.
Yeah. But beyond OpenAI, they stressed the choice available, focusing on dimensions like cost, reliability, latency, and quality across the board. And a big enforcement was Grok from xAI coming to Azure.
Elon Musk's AI model. What do they say about that?
Grok offers reasoning, research, and response capabilities. Elon Musk popped up briefly, virtually, emphasizing Grok's approach reasoning from first principles, aiming for truth with minimal error, which he framed as key for AI safety. He also asked for developer feedback.
So lots of model choice. Does Foundry make it easier to switch between them?
That's the idea. You provision the underlying compute throughput once in Foundry, and then you can use that capacity across different models, Grok, Mistral, Llama, and others. They mention EU sovereign deployment options for Mistral too, plus an expanded partnership with Hugging Face, bringing over 11,000 models onto the platform.
So Foundry handles the models, the infrastructure. What else?
It's also about connecting to real-time web data and enterprise knowledge graphs. The Foundry Agent service, now generally available, lets you build these declarative agents with low code and supports that multi-agent orchestration we talked about.
Can you run these Foundry models outside the cloud?
Yes, they mention support for deploying models at the edge using Foundry. And crucially, they're closing the loop between Foundry and Copilot Studio.
Oh.
You can fine-tune or post-train models within the more powerful Foundry environment, and then deploy those custom models for use within Copilot Studio workflows and agents.
That Stanford Medicine example really brought this to life, didn't it?
It really did. Using multiple layered agents orchestrated via Foundry for cancer tumor board meetings, integrating patient history, radiology, PubMed data. It was a powerful demonstration of complex real-world application. And they announced that specific healthcare agent orchestrator is now available for everyone in Foundry.
They also added features for managing these AI systems.
Yeah, new observability features in Foundry to monitor AI and production tracking, impact, quality, safety, cost, and intra-ID for agent identity and permissions, and agent directory, plus integrations with ServiceNow and Workday for automated provisioning, and Purview for data governance.
Okay, so Foundry is the cloud platform, but they also announced ways to bring this power locally to the developer's machine.
That's right. Foundry Local was announced described as a fast, high-performance runtime for models and agents as a service locally, with a CLI supported on both Windows and Mac.
And connecting this to Windows itself.
Yes, with Windows AI Foundry. They positioned Windows as this massive open platform, and Windows AI Foundry, which they've apparently used internally for features like recall and live caption, aims to support the full dev lifecycle across CPUs, GPUs, NPUs, and the cloud.
So Foundry Local is part of Windows AI Foundry.
Exactly. Built right in, with access to pre-optimized open source models ready to run locally. They also talked about leveraging custom silicon on PCs for efficient inference compute.
And making it easier to build apps that use local data.
Yeah, with rich semantics APIs for indexing data into vector stores locally, with privacy protection, enabling hybrid R-Guide applications that use both local and cloud knowledge. Windows ML aims to simplify deploying high-performance AI across diverse hardware without complex tuning. And native support for MCP in Windows, including built-in servers and a secure registry, helps agents interact safely on the device.
That demo combining Linux, VS Code, Figma, and Copilot was pretty slick.
It really tied a lot together. Setting up a Linux environment via WSL, getting a website project going, and then updating its design based on a Figma file just by describing the changes in a few sentences. Using Copilot and securely connecting to WSL and Figma via MCP servers with user consent, it showed that integrated workflow.
And WSL itself is now open source too.
Yep, the Windows subsystem for Linux is fully open sourced, another nod to the developer community.
Microsoft CTO Kevin Scott also spoke, offering a broader perspective on this agentic web vision.
He did. He framed the agentic web as something emerging collectively, built from open components, protocols, and services. He gave a clear definition of an agent: perceives environment, makes decisions, takes actions towards goals.
And he mentioned significant user growth for agents.
Yeah, a big jump in daily active users. And he noted agents are tackling more complex tasks now thanks to better reasoning models. He even hinted there might be a capability overhang. The models might be even smarter than we're currently leveraging.
Did he talk about challenges?
Yeah.
Like agent memory?
Yes, he stressed the need for richer agentic memory, something beyond basic R or just long context windows. He mentioned type agent as one exploration in that space and said Azure Foundry would be getting richer memory components.
And the importance of standards again.
Absolutely. He hammered home the need for protocols like MCP, Microsoft Copilot Protocol, and A2A, agent-to-agent, for open, reliable, interoperable agent actions. He really underlined their commitment to MCP, praising its simplicity and flexibility.
And NL Web was a big announcement from you, wasn't it?
Huge. NL Web, natural language web. It's a way to easily make existing websites or APIs into agentic applications, essentially by implementing an interface that LLMs can understand. Every NL Web endpoint is an MCP server.
So websites can become interactive agents.
That's the idea. He showed examples from partners like TripAdvisor and Expedia using NL Web to create these agentic experiences directly on their sites. And another demo showed putting an NL Web UI on top of any GitHub repo, letting you query its metadata using natural language, like asking, what was the name of that algorithm in the PR from last week?
Very cool. His overall message seemed to be about collective effort.
Exactly. The power of the collective imagination, building this agentic web together, using these open components and protocols. He also pointed people to specific build sessions to learn more about turning websites into AI apps and agentic memory.
Okay, underneath all this AI and agent stuff, there's data and infrastructure. They touched on that too, right, with Fabric?
Right. Fabric sits at the heart of their data stack. They announced tighter integration like Cosmos DB coming directly into Foundry to handle things like conversational history for agents or RBAC data needs. Azure Data Strikes connecting data spaces to Foundry, and LLM responses getting integrated directly alongside natural language and SQL queries within Fabric itself.
And addressing the cost versus performance challenge.
Yeah, acknowledging that balancing act, delivering great AI experiences while driving down costs. They framed it as a systems problem they're tackling across the board, from silicon to software, in partnership with the industry. Mentioned ongoing Azure infrastructure expansion, now over 70 data center regions.
Any specific hardware mentions? NVIDIA partnership.
Definitely highlighted the NVIDIA partnership, referenced launching a huge AI supercomputer on Azure a couple of years back, and noted things like a 40x speedup thanks to new CUDA algorithms and the Azure infrastructure. The focus was on compatibility, stability, and accelerating all sorts of workloads, not just model training.
And security resilience.
Touched on digital resilience through compliance capabilities and sovereign controls, things like data residency and confidential computing. And Azure Local for those edge scenarios needing super low latency or offline capability.
Finally, there was a really interesting segment on AI specifically for scientific discovery, Microsoft Discovery.
Yeah, that was fascinating. Microsoft Discovery for Science. It's built on what they call a graph-based knowledge engine, GraphRG, understanding complex relationships in scientific data. And it uses specialized agents designed for R&D.
How do these agents work?
They operate in a continuous cycle, generating candidate solutions or hypotheses, simulating or running experiments, leveraging Azure HPC, and then learning from the results to refine the next step.
And the example they showed was finding new materials.
Exactly. Finding PFAS-free immersion coolants for data centers. It involved the agent reasoning over vast amounts of knowledge, public and internal, generating hypotheses about molecules with specific properties, running simulations on Azure, and it actually led them to a promising candidate that they then synthesized and tested in a lab.
That's incredible. The potential seems huge.
Absolutely. They mentioned applications in therapeutics, semiconductor design, really cutting-edge stuff. And they wrapped up the keynote by highlighting developers already using these tools for amazing things, diagnosing rare diseases, gamifying wellness, helping airline staff, and that World Bank study showing AI tools helping student and teacher outcomes.
So wrapping this all up, the big picture for Microsoft Build 2025 seems to be this massive push towards an agentic web. It's powered by advancements everywhere, AI models, developer tools, especially Copilot and VS Code, the whole Azure AI Foundry platform, and weaving AI deep into M365.
Yeah, the clear focus is empowering developers, giving them the tools to build these intelligent apps and agents that can automate things, make us more productive, and as we saw with Discovery, maybe even tackle really complex global challenges.
It really feels like a comprehensive vision.
It does. It connects everything from the developer's local machine right up to massive cloud infrastructure and specialized scientific tools, all centered around this idea of intelligent agents.
Which brings us nicely to our final thought for you listening. As these tools get smarter and more autonomous, how might that fundamentally change things? Not just how we build software, but maybe how we interact with technology in our everyday lives. When these virtual teammates become more integrated, what new possibilities open up? What's a big problem you could tackle with these capabilities?
Lots to think about there.
Definitely. Okay, that's all the time we have for this deep dive into the Microsoft Build 2025 keynote. Thanks for tuning in.